with winter fast approaching, it really is the last week or two of our polytunnel tomatoes. As you can tell from the footage, we've actually removed an awful lot of tomato plants already a couple of weeks ago. They're done, they were starting to fail, and we wanted to give as much light as possible in here for the rest of the tomatoes to ripen. Now, we do have a lot of green tomatoes, but not as many as we did a week or so ago. So thankfully, leaving them in a little bit longer has given us the opportunity to ripen these tomatoes outside. Where I've got nothing against green tomatoes, I don't want that many this year. And the more I can ripen, the better it is for me to store and to use and to process. Now, it is really hot in here, and at the moment it's 27 degrees. So it's very, very warm. But I really do need to start harvesting some of these tomatoes because, to be honest, I've left them over the last week or so and I haven't been opening up the polytunnel and I haven't been doing all the jobs that needed to be done. And now some of the tomatoes have got issues. Now, as you can see, this time of year, you can get a lot more issues, especially if you're not ventilating your polytunnel, or blight can be a major factor. This plant's pretty much had it, and I won't be taking anything off this particular plant, apart from maybe the actual lower trusses here, and I'll try and ripen those at home. Now, my Romas have done ever so well this year, and we have produced a lot of tomato sauces and pastes and things like that with a lot of our tomatoes. But all these can be harvested today. Plants looking a little bit loose for wear, and we're starting to see slight signs of actual blight. So I want to harvest what we can before the tomatoes themselves get the blight. Now, my jalapeno pepper plant is still producing, and in fact I've still got flowers appearing. Now, this plant, or these plants, I think there's 3 in this pot, will be coming indoors this year because I want to get a little bit more of a head start next year. The cayennes and things like that, I'll just grow from seed for next year. But these are beautiful. Now, we've had actual red jalapenos off of this year, but to be honest, oh, there's one there. But to be honest, I quite like them green as well. Now, we have got sweet peppers. The one big thing that we found this year is as soon as they're ripening, we're getting insects literally eating all the way through and damaging the peppers. But again, you can see I've actually got flowers growing on this sweet pepper plant. Now, I may try and grow this indoors because it actually had some fantastic tasting peppers. But it's not easy to get them to ripen in our climate. And you never know what kind of year we're going to have. Now, these sweet peppers were absolutely fantastic, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was. I'll have to see if I can find. We had a lot of issues trying to germinate our peppers this year. But this was really, really tasty and quite prolific too. So it's definitely something that will grow for next year. It's so hot in here, it really is warm. So with these, now these are black prints. And I can't remember if that's the colour that it's supposed to be. But that's what it's been labelled up as, so I'm guessing that's what it is. Now, I'm actually going to harvest these off of this plant because I need to start making room. But the good thing about these, they stay on the vine quite well. Now, they could do with being ripening a little bit longer, and they're a little bit hard still. But these have been quite prolific, and I think this is the second flush of tomatoes that we've actually had off this particular plant. Now, the load of green tomatoes that I actually took into the house about a week to 2 weeks ago have actually all ripened really well. Now we use the banana trick, where we'll add a very ripe banana and cover it loosely with some cling film over the top of the rest of the tomatoes. And this really does help ripen up these tomatoes. Now, one of the other reasons I want to clear these is because we are showing signs of blight, which at this time of year, it really isn't uncommon. So I want to take as many as I possibly can before that blight does hit the actual tomato itself. Now, even though we lost our outdoor tomatoes from blight, we actually managed to save quite a few before it actually took hold. And this year we've actually had so many tomatoes. It's been one of our best years so far. Now, a lot of people will make comments about you don't need to grow that amount of tomatoes. I would disagree, but that disagreement is always depending on what you're growing for. We grow to be a little bit more self-sufficient, so we want to be able to produce quantity as well as quality. But tomatoes for us are so versatile, we're actually able to produce an awful lot of things from these tomatoes. So for me, it really is an important crop. Now, we have got to make some decisions this year on what tomatoes to grow for next. There's some varieties that did really well, and then there was others that really were not worth it. So when it comes to sowing our seeds next year, we'll know which ones to avoid. Now, sometimes it is a bad tomato year. It could be literally just the weather. Our weather is so unpredictable here in the UK that sometimes you never know what you're going to get. And certain varieties definitely do better than others. But we also want to grow for taste. You could grow simple things like money makers and things like that, but I actually am not a big fan of the money makers taste. So this year, having a chance to try all the different flavours with all the different varieties that we grew, I think it was 23 or 27 different varieties, it really has given us the opportunity to have a really good taste of different varieties and whether they're worth growing again, because we want quantity as well. Now, any of the tomatoes that are on this plant, I'm happy just to lose. I don't want to overburden myself with way too many tomatoes, but this particular one has been really quite good, and in fact it started to flower a little bit more. But since I've got blight in the tunnel, there is just no point trying to keep it. You're just going to fight a losing battle. So these will be cut down to the base and actually removed like the other previous tomatoes. That is just off the one plant. Now that's the second or third flush I think that this particular plant has had. So that's not bad for this time of year. Now, another problem with leaving things too long on the vine, this can happen. They can split. Now this is still edible. We just need to process or eat this quite quickly, which is a shame really, because I was waiting for so long for these particular ones to ripen. And they've just split. This could probably be due to inconsistent watering, to be honest. But again, still usable. Now again, these Roma I'm actually going to take off as well. And any that are not fully ripened, I'll actually ripen at home. Now, these are great tomatoes for cooking with. Really full and fleshy with a lot less seed, and gives you the most brilliant tasting tomato and tomato sauces and pastes, especially when they've been ripened on the vine. Now I feel quite lucky this year that we've actually had tomatoes so late in the season. Now this is our first year of Polytunnel tomatoes, and I'm not going to lie, I'm really happy with them. and roamers are definitely something that's going to always be in our arsenal for growing our tomatoes. Again, any that's not quite ripe, these will go in with the banana. Now, I don't want to keep anything that's been damaged or half eaten. I've got enough to deal with without having to sort through that. But what tomatoes have you been really successful with this year? And what ones are you hoping to grow for next year? Are you growing for quantity or are you growing for taste? What kind of tomatoes are you hoping to grow? Just how successful has your year been? It's been a really strange year this year here in the UK for growing, where some things have done fantastically well. There's been a lot that's, well, it's really struggled. And it's been a lot of issues with either slug damage with the amount of rain that we had, or now later on the season, whitefly. But I feel quite blessed this year with our tomato harvest, because you can never guarantee any crops at any time, because anything can happen. So I'm going to carry on removing all these tomatoes, and over the next day or two they'll all be cut down and put into the compost bin. But I try not to put tomato plants into the compost bin if I can help it, because they really do spread with their seed. No matter how hot I've had the compost bin in the past, tomato seeds always seem to survive somewhere. And whereas, yes, it's a freebie, it's all nice to have, I want to make sure what I'm growing is where I want to grow it next year. I found in the greenhouse, when I've left volunteer tomato seedlings and they've grown, they've overtaken the other plants that I've actually put in there that I wanted to grow. So next year I'm definitely being a little bit more careful when it comes to what's being planted. Just some of the tomatoes that are ripe and ready to go home. Again, for mid-October, I feel exceptionally lucky. But I'm going to get on with this job, and I shall see you in the next video.